My views do not endorse or reflect the views that are shared by Punchboard Party or any of its affiliates.
You are its affiliate.
Uh-oh, that's a problem.
All right, here we go. What's happening, party people? Welcome to Punchboard Party. My name is Daniel, this is Father Greg, and we are doing our top 100 board games of all time. You might have noticed our last two videos, we were dressed the same. That was because Father Greg isn't in town every weekend, and so sometimes we plan ahead. And good thing we did, because I got COVID. So the week that I had to isolate, we already had a video in the can. So I was super grateful for that. So thank you, Father Greg, for forward planning with me.
Yeah, no problem.
All right, but this video, we are talking about our top 40 to 31. So this list is heating up.
It is.
We're going for it. We're going for it. And the party people, they're eating it up. They're loving it. So let's just give them more. So Father Greg, why don't you start today?
Okay. Well, my number 40, I don't often, I have some paints for miniatures. I don't often paint a lot, but this is one game that I have fully painted, and that is Blood Rage.
There it is.
This is a game that Dan didn't want, and I was happy to take it off his hands. And yeah, Blood Rage, a nice card drafting sort of dudes on a map game. You're trying to conquer these areas. You're trying to smash other people with Vikings and weird creatures and trolls and sea monsters and, sea mon minis that, are big and very expansive and beautiful to paint and so on. And so, yeah, it's just a great game, really. That's kind of my, somebody says I really want to just do combat kind of, throw guys around, just have like big giant creatures. If you want that, like Blood Rage is a good choice for that. Wow. But with some little kind of Euro mechanisms involved. There's it plays like, it looks like an Ameritrash game, but it plays like a Euro game, right? There's like these tracks you're trying to move up. You're trying to move up your horns and your glory and your rage. And, once you actually get into like the meat and potatoes, it kind of really plays like just a kind of Euro game. So it really fits kind of both of those camps.
Well, it's a card drafting game with all the bells and whistles.
That's right.
So you go around. It was your fault that I got rid of the game to you, because the first play of this, I was trying to play this like an area control game. And at the time, I wasn't particularly good at area control games, and I was frustrated. I would go in for battle, and then I would get slaughtered. And Father Greg, he got all the cards that score you points for being in Valhalla, for losing battles. So you were losing, and I was like, well, at least I'm not doing as bad as that guy. The whole time, he's winning the darn game. And that just pissed me off, man. I couldn't handle it.
It's true. Eric Lang seems to have a couple mechanisms in different games that feature losing as a way of winning. Yes. Gaining points from losing in battle. So that's also
and really, it's brilliant. Like, it's a cool way to go. And like, if I knew that I was playing Seven Wonders plus, I would have been playing differently. So no, I do think that's a good choice. I need to revisit this, see if it would actually make it onto the list for me or not.
Cool.
All right, so my 40th top favorite board game of all time. I think we're going to get flack for this list. I got flack near the beginning of our list for having warm-up games on my list. Guillotine got
I'm ready.
Flack.
I'm ready. Let's hear it.
So this is like warm-up games, the list, man. I mean, not totally, but, So 40, we are talking about Las Vegas. Rudiger Dorn strikes again, baby. Here he comes.
Wow.
Back with a vengeance. So Las Vegas is this beautiful little card game about gambling in Las Vegas. And really, it has nothing to do with that. But there's these casinos that you put out on the table, and then you kind of seed them with bills, with different bills of different denominations. And then you are going to contest these different casinos, which all have a different die value that represents them, 1 to 6. And so then what you do on your turn is you have a little pool of dice, that's your color, and you roll those dice, and then you have to kind of commit a set of dice to a casino. But the choice is you have to take dice of a certain value and put them at that value's casino. If you roll 3 threes, then you have to put all your threes on the 3 casino if you're going to 3, or all of your 2s to the 2 if you're going for 2. And so you just select one die value, you put all those dice at that casino, and then you roll again. And so everyone's doing that, and they're all putting their dice on casinos, and it's kind of this area majority thing that's going on. But what's really cool is whoever has the most dice of their color gets the highest money value that's at that location. But if 2 people have tied, then their presence cancels out. And so then the next lowest person or the next highest person gets the biggest money value there. And they don't get anything for being there because they cancel each other out. And so it's this really neat, simple game of just area majority, trying to kind of sneak out the win, trying not to be canceled out by another player. Again, just area majority stripped down to its lowest common denominator for a really fun time. And this is where you get literal cheers for die rolls. I love games that do that.
Cool. We've played this, but I don't think this is a game I've even rated. I think...
okay, you forgot about it.
Yeah, this is a game I completely forgot about until you just mentioned it.
It happens.
So
we can give her a go tonight.
Nice.
Not even a thing.
Very good. Cool. Well, the next one is... I play not many solo games, but I do play some games solo, and right now this is one of my main solo games of choice. You can play with many players, but it works just fine as a one player, and that is the Lord of the Rings Journeys in Middle-earth. So this is kind of my adventure game. If I want a good night of just sitting down and moving, I don't even have that many like IP games, but the Lord of the Rings I enjoy, and so I take 2 or 3 or 4 characters and you send them on missions, and it's pretty neat. Like, there are really 2 different kinds of maps. You play through like a whole campaign of like 8 to 10 different scenarios, but each one, like, one is either like in a kind of exploration map where you're kind of going and exploring all these different terrains on the board, and you're trying to do different tests. It'll ask you to see if you can climb a tree, so you kind of flip over these cards from your deck and you try to see if you can successfully climb the tree or not. And then there's battle maps where you're just fighting like a big wolf or a dire wolf or a big orc or whatever that shows up. But each of those kind of play really differently, and so it's interesting the way that the game kind of tells you, this one's going to be an exploration map, this one's going to be a battle map. So just the kind of versatility that's present, the way the app kind of designs the game. Even if you play the same map twice, it'll be slightly different. Like, the kind of gist of it will be the same, but if I were to play it again, I wouldn't know where everything is. I wouldn't be like, we have to go left here. It would be, each map is a little bit different. The app kind of randomizes a few things. So it's pretty neat. There's a lot to offer, and then as you go throughout the campaigns, your character gets slightly better. So you're like drawing from this deck, and it's kind of like rolling a dice in the sense that you might have, half of your deck is successes and half of it's fails kind of thing. But as you kind of upgrade your character, you're putting, better cards into your deck. You're putting more successes into your deck. So like you can more reliably get, the kind of like higher rolls that you might need in order to kind of move along the map. So yeah, Lord of the Rings, Journeys in Middle-earth, love it.
That sounds like a cool solo experience. That's kind of neat. My next game is Insider. Have you played Insider?
I have not.
Oh boy, man! So this is one of those little oink games.
Yes.
And this is a party game of the highest caliber. It's just a very simple concept. So there is the master. So you designate players to be certain roles, and so there's the and you do that by your classic close your eyes, everyone gets a card, they see what they are. So there's your master, and the master, they select a word to use for the round, and then there's common players, and there's the insider. And so the whole thing of the game is that the commons, with the help of the insider, are trying to guess what the word is that the master has chosen. And so it's kind of 20 question style, yes or no answers that the commons are asking the master. Is it an animal? Is it bigger than a house? This kind of thing.
Right.
And then the insider knows what it is. So the insider is pretending to be a common and asking questions, hoping to steer everyone in the right direction, but trying not to give themselves away as the insider.
Right.
Because what happens is that if everybody guesses what the thing is, then the master flips over this hourglass timer, and now everyone has that amount of time to figure out who the insider is. And so if they can figure out who the insider is, then everybody wins except for the insider. And then, but if nobody can figure out who the insider is, and the insider wins. So it's this kind of like cool thing where there's this like pre-game for the real game. You know?
Right.
So I've had so much fun just like trying to be the insider, trying to like steer things, not be too obvious, and just totally messing it up, being super obvious. I've had the situation where I knew who the insider was, and nobody went with me. And so the insider won the game when I knew that who it was the whole time. So
Feels
really
bad,
cool.
man.
It feels bad. It feels bad. So again, this is my thing. Just like a game mechanism stripped down to its core, simplest thing. And so this is like social deduction, bluffing at its just like finest. Once again.
My number 38 is a lighter game as well. This is probably my word game of choice. So if you enjoy a little bit of a word game, and this is Letter Jam.
Wow.
So Letter Jam is a really interesting kind of word game mixed with like a deduction game. So you're all kind of making these like 5-letter words, but then you're like passing off your hand to like your neighbor, but like at the end of the game sort of, and so then you've got these 5 cards in your hand, but everyone else can kind of see it's kind of Hanabi style where you're putting up your cards so that everyone else can see, and then they've got to make words that utilize some of the letters in your thing. So they might say, I used your first letter, to make a word. And you can see some of the other letters, but you don't still know what your first letter is. But based on the word that was made, you kind of go, okay, this could be maybe an R or maybe an S or whatever. And so then you think you get your first letter, you put that one down. You start with your second letter. And your goal is to try and figure out what word is in front of you by the end of the game. So it's a kind of like, it's just a really interesting, it's 5-letter words if you're into like Wordle right now.
Yeah, I was going to
whatever.
say, Wordle Reborn.
That's right. Like if you're into 5-letter like sort of word games, this is like right up your alley. It just plays really nicely into that kind of thing. And it involves this cool little like sort of deductive aspect. If I get this word and I know the last 4 letters, but I'm still trying to figure out what my letter could possibly be. And really interesting.
Yeah, that sounds cool. I had no idea what the game was about. I've just seen the stupid cover. It's freaking taunting me. my 38th top board game of all time is Blueprints, baby. Yves Tournier, a Canadian designer. Have you ever heard of this?
I've never even heard of this, no.
You what? Okay, so this
Blueprints.
Blueprints. So this might be, I'm sure.
Like blueprints like a house, or a blueprints like a son of a king?
like it. Why am I talking about a blueprints?
I have no idea.
Yeah, Blueprints like a house.
Okay.
This is board game world. Take really boring themes and make them into board games, remember?
Got it.
This is what we do. So Blueprints, it might be my lowest rated game on the list. I'm not sure. I can't speak for that. Maybe it's gained in popularity. But Blueprints, it's this cool little game where you draft dice, and the dice have they represent different building materials, like glass and brick and these kinds of things, but they're different colors, like green and clear and orange and black and this kind of thing. The different colored dice score points in different kind of ways, and so like the orange, they score points for the number of pips on the top of the die that you place. And so if you place a 5, then you're going to get 5 points, that kind of thing. Black dice, they score points based on how high they are in a tower. This kind of thing. So you have a player screen that you hide behind, and then there's a drafting phase where you draft dice in order. But as you draft, you also have to place. And you have a little blueprint card that has a particular building design. And so you're going to get points if you complete the particular building design. But you can go rogue. you can go off grid and you can just build whatever the heck you want to score the most points with the dice that you're drafting. And so Sarah, my wife, hates this game because she's working away on her little building design, following the instructions on her blueprint and having a good time. And then we reveal, and I have like a tower of black dice. And she's like, what? And there's also these kind of scoring cards that you can gain as well for doing extra sort of things. And so it just really all comes together in a nice little package. It doesn't take a heck of a long time to play. It is a little bit confusing teaching people. As I'm explaining it right now, you might be scratching your head a little bit, but it comes together quite nicely where it's a simple drafting game. It's drafting the different dice or different kind of things that score different ways, and you're putting them together to try and score the most points. And I just really like the flow. I like that fact that you can just kind of do your own thing or stick to the blueprint.
Right on. Well, my number 37. I don't know if this is like a Saskatchewan thing, but I find a lot of people here grow up playing cards. Cards, like that was what was my childhood. Like I didn't play board games that much. Well, a little bit as a kid, but mainly card games. Like every family, every person that I knew could play Kaiser or Schmear or Hearts or some kind of card game.
Schmear?
That
sounds horrible.
It's a common game. So there's like all these different types of card games, but I think that's what makes my 37 so magical, and that is The Crew, The Quest for Planet 9. So this is a game that I have pulled out with. Interestingly, I've pulled it out with like anybody who I've pulled it out with who's interested in trick-taking games, who knows what that is, who grew up with that, like even if they're like my aunts or, different people like who are significantly older than I am, who maybe, if I pulled out like a big sprawling board game, would be just totally, utterly disinterested. But you pull out this game and you're like, okay, this is a trick-taking game where we're working together. And they're like, all of us together on the same team? And you're like, yeah. And they're like, okay. And then you kind of explain it. You're like, well, okay, so now we have to work together to make sure that, Sam gets the green 5. They're like, well, how are we going to... Oh, and you can kind of see like the like cogs sort of like moving in their mind as they're like trying to figure this out. And it's like, oh, I see. Oh, and then the next mission's even more difficult. And there's all these like little things that sort of unfold. And no, like I've played this with people who have never played a trick-taking game in their life, and they are completely confused. Even like experienced board gamers. I pulled this game out and they're like, so wait, how do I get the 7? I'm like, how do you not know this? Like, this is ingrained within my life. Like, this is like in my bones. So I think that will depend upon whether you like trick-taking games. But if you have grown up playing trick-taking games, if that's something that you're very familiar with, then The Crew is sensational, and it will accomplish like some magic moments in board gaming. There are some moments that I just sit there and I'm like, I never ever thought I would get this person interested in this type of game, but here they are, like absolutely loving themselves.
Yeah, I'm in that second category of people that you explained.
Right.
Where, oh man, I played this game and I was so lost. I had no idea what we were doing, and I felt like a dummy because trick-taking gamers, like people who play trick-taking games and have it in their bones, are jerks to people who don't have it in their bones. It is a tough place to be in. They're just like, why did you do that? What do you mean, why did I do that? Why did you do that?
Right, there are some like kind of like unwritten rules about trick-taking games that you learn as you play along.
Yeah. It was not a positive experience.
I can understand.
Although Sarah, I think, would love it. I keep on forgetting about that. I keep on, because she grew up playing Kaiser and things like this, and so I should, you should bring it over and we should play with her. She would love it. All right, 37. Stick with warm-up games, baby. Just stay nice and warm. Oh yeah.
That's so uncomfortable.
King Domino. We talked about this a long time ago.
Yeah, this was on like the lower end of my top 100.
I feel like our lists are going to be inverted here.
That's it.
Games where you were like, this is okay. I'm like, this is awesome.
Right.
So this is Bruno Catala. He's my man. And this is a Spiel des Jahres winner. This is just a sweet little game. We all know it. We know what's going on. So the main tension here is that you're drafting domino tiles to add to your little kingdom, and you're hoping to get kind of majorities in areas. So like you want a big ocean area, you want a big field area, you want a big farm area. But basically what determines what you want is the number of crowns that are in that type of terrain type or region. And the more crowns that are available in certain regions, there's usually less of that region available. And so you're trying to make up your little grid and score points that way. But the big tension is that select a tile by putting your meeple next to it. The kind of higher you go on this little row that you're drafting from, the crappier the tile that you're getting, but then you're going to be able to draft first the next time. But if you're going for a real good tile, then you're going to be drafting last the next round. And so again, just a game that gives you just turn after turn this little thrill of, oh, I could kind of do what I'm trying to do with that top tile. But I really could, oh man, that would be a nice kind of bonus to get that bottom tile. I'll play it safe. And you just kind of do that round after round after round. And I love that just a simple goal emerges as you play, where you're just, okay, water's going to be my big point thing here. So like trying to do that as best you can, but maybe people just start scooping that up, and so you have to pivot a little bit. But again, really simple game, nothing fancy here. Kill 15 minutes. Like that.
I always love a good little tile placement, kind of domino style game.
Yeah, well,
this is very satisfying.
Again, just a stroke of brilliance.
My 36 is my abstract game of choice. I think it's my highest sort of abstract strategy game. Although it doesn't really look abstract strategy, because that is Santorini. So Santorini is an abstract strategy game that has all sorts of bells and whistles popped on top, where you're building these cool like floors of buildings, topping them with these little blue domes, and by the end you've got like the Greek island of Santorini, and it looks so fantastic. Once it's all set out, I always take a picture of like the final result of hopefully my guy seated on top of the tower. You're basically, that's right, you're just trying to get up. It's a kind of abstract strategy game where you're just moving up the tower. You're trying to get to the third level, but people can block you by building a fourth level, which is that dome, which kind of prevents anyone from going up there. But what really makes this game so different is that there are all these different god powers, and there's a lot, like especially with the expansion. There's like something like, I don't know, 50 maybe or so different like god powers that you can throw into the mix, and each of them does really different things. Some guys you can like jump up extra spaces, or you can build more on your turn, or you can block other people from doing things if they're close to you, or whatever. Just all kinds of like different, some even give you additional victory conditions. Oh, you win if you can do this thing, or you win if you can manage to make 6 towers or whatever complete on the board. Or so just different like things where every time you play there's always this little different experience. It's never quite the same depending upon which sort of god powers you're using. So yeah, it looks beautiful. It fills that kind of nice little, if you have someone in your life who likes kind of that chess, who just likes to sit at a board and think through all the possibilities, Santorini for me is my game of choice.
Yeah, I played this recently. I played this once with you a long time ago, and then recently I played it with a kid. He schooled me, man. He had this ability where like he like killed me if he got close to me. And so I had to like stay away from him while trying to prevent him from getting to certain levels. So it was like this double like task that was next to impossible. It was kind of, we were playing 3 players, so it was John and Dominic.
Wow, so, you got beat by a small child.
No, he's not small. He's old. Kids grow up, Craig.
Still 5 to me.
He's not. but the one thing that's sort of like I'm not sure if I love about this game is just it has that like tic-tac-toe factor where it's like I make a move, then you make a move that kind of undoes my move, you do a move, undo your move. Like it's kind of really tit for tat until someone just sort of like ekes out the advantage. And like that's sort of cool, but like I've never loved that rhythm. I've never loved that kind of like, all right, my 36th favorite board game of all time, 7 Wonders.
Wow, yep.
Here it is.
There
just
it is.
Inverting your list a little bit. Haven't we done this for you, right?
Yes, oh yeah.
Yeah.
Long time
time ago. Seven Wonders is a game that I just think is a game for any occasion. We say it a lot, and we're going to keep on saying it, that we definitely find that it's a little hard to teach brand new board gamers. Just because of the iconography, just because of the fact that you don't actually spend resources, you just kind of have them from round to round to spend every time. Like, that's kind of not intuitive to a lot of people. So Seven Wonders really does lay the foundation for all the heavy Euro games that we play, where you have different things, like 7 or 8 different things that you can kind of get into, but you really got to kind of focus in on 2 or 3, know what to let fall to the wayside, know what to invest in. Seven Wonders does that on kind of, again, just a simple level. Whereas, like, am I going to go for the blue cards and then maybe kind of hedge my financial situation with the yellow cards, and then maybe I'll do a little bit of military just to kind of keep people off my back. And then I'll let sciences go, and I'll let, resources kind of get my bare minimum there too. So it really does teach you sort of how to balance the different resources that come into play. You don't want to ignore things outright, but at the same time, you do have to go hard into 1 or 2 things. And so getting that balance right is the trick of the game, and is always just super satisfying. And you start to get intuitive when you play this game too. You start to, like, if you play it enough, you just sort of know what you're going for. You get the feel for it down. Seven Wonders is awesome.
That's right. If you play this enough, you can play this game in like 15 minutes once you get really good at it. Just sort of passing cards on the table. So
Yeah.
it's like, you're right. It is a good intro to kind of heavier Euro games.
Yeah.
Cool. Well, my 35 is not a light game. This was one of the earliest Kickstarters I backed. Not the first one, but pretty early on in kind of my venturing into Kickstarter. This was by a designer that I'd never heard of. I think he's designed maybe 1 or 2 other games prior to this. And that is Clans of Caledonia.
Wow.
So this is like a mildly heavy game about farming and sort of the Scottish Industrial Revolution. You're getting sheep, and then you're taking the wool, and you're getting cows, and you're taking the milk and turn it into cheese. And so it's got this kind of resource kind of system where you're turning one thing into something else. You're taking wheat and your grain, and you're turning it into whiskey, or you're like harvesting all these goods, and then you're trying to kind of settle around the map. And there's this kind of weird thing where you want to kind of like grow your settlement, but you also want to make lots of like little settlements around the board. Especially around like a lake, you kind of want to expand and create lots of little settlements. But if they touch, then now they're just one big settlement, and you kind of don't want that. So you want like to kind of venture across and go across rivers and go across big bodies of water and kind of make all these little settlements. You're trying to fulfill contracts, and you're trying to just, get the most money and goods and stuff like that to be able to put more stuff onto the board. So it's a really clean game. It really scratches that itch of a good heavy kind of Euro game, and it fits really nicely together. It's just a nice little package.
Boring Terra Mystica.
Oh.
Didn't mean to kill a little boy inside you there. Holy Toledo.
Like you say, board gaming is about taking something that is so boring, like sheep farming and cattle farming,
it's excellent. Again, that sounds like an insult, and it sort of was, but really, like, it takes the best parts of Terra Mystica, and it takes like a nice economic engine and theme, and it puts it all together very nicely. It is a good game. But just like, for me, I don't know why I would choose to play it over Terra Mystica.
I've never played Terra Mystica, so.
Right! I forget these things.
That must be it. It must be the reason.
It must be the reason.
The moment I play Terra Mystica, Clans of Caledonia is off the map, apparently.
My 35th top board game. So just on our last video, our last list, somebody commented saying, I'm expecting to see A Study in Emerald, 2nd edition, to come onto the list. And I said, it's coming, winky face. A Study in Emerald,
here
2nd
edition.
It's
here.
It is. This is a weird game. This is like unlike anything I've ever played, anything and it's just so fascinating. So one, it's based off of a Neil Gaiman short story, which is fascinating to begin with. It's designed by Martin Wallace. It combines all these mechanisms into one and gives you just like a taste of each of them. Just a little bit of worker placement, a little bit of area control, a little bit of deck building. And there's not enough of any of those mechanisms to make you feel like it's a area control game or whatever. And then there's also hidden roles and secret identities, and it's nuts. And so basically the board has all these different locations all over the world, and the theme is that the elder gods have taken over and they have seated on the throne. They have won. And now there's the loyalists, and they are trying to support these elder gods, these monster gods, and trying to keep them in power. And there's the folks that are trying to take them down, trying to stab these monsters in the heart. And so big ways to get points throughout the game are to defeat these big elder god monsters, which are in the form of cards that you go to a location, and then if the card is at the top of that location's deck, then you battle that monster, sort of thing. And you have cards in hand that you can use for all sorts of different actions. Like you can use cards to travel or to battle and so multi-use card situation that's really satisfying. And then you can add cards to your deck, but you're only going to add like 4 or 5 cards to your deck over the course of the game. But so you're going to get points for defeating elder gods, but you're also going to get points for assassinating other characters. But here's the catch. Based on the faction that you are, so during the game, you're going to score points for doing whatever. But then at the end of the game, once the end game is triggered, and it's triggered by a weird way of like the points of one faction being further apart than the points of another faction or a certain distance. And then once it's triggered, then we reveal who we are. And so if I was a loyalist and I got points by killing elder gods, then those points get taken away from me because I'm a loyalist. I don't actually do that. I was just trying to keep you off my scent. And so then you have this weird scoring at the end where like people lose points because they didn't actually earn those points. They just kind of faked having those points. Weird, but super satisfying world to be in. Super satisfying use of multi-use cards. Super satisfying use of all those mechanisms I talked about in just nice, digestible, bite-sized quantities.
Cool. That sounds like a lot of fun.
Weird game, crazy package.
Cool. Well, my number 34 is a game that is on your shelf somewhere there. It's a game that we played not that long ago, and that is Nidavelir.
Hey!
So I really enjoy a game that gives me like lots of options, especially options between like focusing in one thing or diversifying. So like you spoke of Seven Wonders, right? And Seven Wonders, generally speaking, you want to pick at least one or thing to kind of go strong in. I'm going to go all in on my military. I'm going to try to get as much science as possible. And you can do that in Nidavelir. You can be like, I'm going to get every single orange card, because every orange card that you get is just going to make every orange card that you have that much better. Or I'm going to get every green card. But you can also be like, I'm just going to try to get a little bit of everything. And if I get, nice groups of one of each card, then I get to pick from these other, crazy powerful, whatever dwarves that are on the board. And so you're sort of like recruiting them. And so there's that aspect. And then you've got the coolest thing is this like money board. And so on your turn, because there's cards that come up, but you're like betting, you're like auctioning these sort of cards off. But your tokens that you're using to auction are not necessarily the same as what your opponent has. So your opponent could have just stronger tokens. And so to create like a better token, you need to like kind of meld 2 of your coins together, and then you can like upgrade them into one bigger coin. And so sometimes you might see like something on the board that you don't really need right now. You're going for a lot of greens. There's no green cards on the board. You're like, cool, now's my time to just use my money and just turn it into better money. And then later on, when there's 1 or 2 different green cards, then I can like really put all my money into getting as many of those as possible. So there's just a really neat kind of bidding auction system, a really neat sort of balance between going all in on one strategy or kind of diversifying. Really liked first couple plays of Nidavelir.
Yeah, this game is amazing. I just love it so much. I love the auction mechanism. I love the upgrading your coins so that you can do that better. One disadvantage or one thing that I've noticed is that in 3-player games, one person can kind of sneak out the victory by just getting the stuff that the other 2 people are passing by. So I have found that to be you have to be aware of that at least going into a 3-player game. But again, Excellent. All right, number 34 for me, oldie but a goodie, Lords of Waterdeep.
Mm-hmm.
So this is just your classic worker placement game, right? People say Champions of Midgard killed this game. People said, well, why play this if you like Stone Age, you know? I say, why not play them all? I actually haven't played Champions of Midgard. Again, Lords of Waterdeep. I love just worker placement, the board game. Mm-hmm. It's very simple. There's different locations on the board that you're going out and you're going to get a little bit of money, or you're going to get a little bit of this color cube or a little bit of that color cube. We're going to change this cube to that color. And you have all these little contracts that just want certain types of cubes. So it's just order fulfillment. So you're just going around, you're getting those cubes, you're cashing them in. Cards kind of have abilities sometimes if you complete them that let you do things more easily. Our friend cheats when he plays this game and tells us that he can do whatever the hell he wants. Oh yeah, this card says I win if I do this, so I win. But I just really like, again, just the thrill of just going out hoping that you can collect things faster than your opponents, hoping that you can fulfill things faster than your opponents, and then just simple sort of upgrades like unlocking an additional worker before other people can do that. Of course that's going to be powerful in this kind of early worker placement board game design, but there's something really magical about that where it's like people don't like that now. They're like, come on, but it's nice to take advantage of that, especially back in the day. And this was a game that I could introduce to high school buddies of mine in board games, and they could be like, I've been to these places, because they play D&D and stuff. And so it was just this cool sort of melding of tabletop RPGs and tabletop board gaming.
Yes, I know. We played this with a friend, and this was the only time I played this game, and I don't think it was entirely his fault. He probably just didn't understand the rules, but he was a friend who like normally beats us at a lot of games anyways. So because he didn't follow one of the rules, he completely and utterly obliterated us.
That's right.
It
was
yes.
like one of those things where like, if you do this, then you can do this. And it was like a one-time thing, and he did it every time.
That's right.
That kind of thing.
But yes, it was a good game, although that experience might have soured it for me a bit in my in my imagining. My 33 is a big game. It is Vladimir Suchi. He doesn't make too many small little games.
This guy is up there for you, man.
He's got some big games, and
you're loving Vlad the Impaler.
That's right. Vlad the Impaler. Nice, good reference. And this is Underwater Cities. So Underwater Cities.
Father Dan will be happy that this is higher than Terraforming Mars for you.
That's right. Although this game's a lot higher on his list too. In this game you are building these underwater cities. The world is apparently global warming's taken us into a deep dark place, and so we've decided that we need to colonize the oceans. And so
it makes sense to me.
We're all eating seaweed and
Let's
kelp.
make the oceans a deep dark place.
So we're all eating kelp. We're trying to get this red stuff. I don't know what it is. We're trying to get like all these different resources. But it's kind of what's interesting is that there's three colors of cards. You've got green cards, yellow cards, and red cards. But to play a yellow card, you need to go to like a yellow spot on the board. And so, but the yellow cards, for example, are like not that great, but the yellow spots on the board are really good. Whereas the green cards have like really powerful effects, but the spots on the board are pretty weak. So you kind of play this game where you're like, okay, well, I've got this green card. I don't really want this space, but I need to play it. So, okay, fine, I'll go here just to get this card out. Then I really need to go to this yellow spot, even though, okay, this card is, kind of so-so, and it doesn't really matter that much. But then you're kind of playing cards into a tableau, kind of a la, Terraforming Mars. But I think this game does a few things nicer than Terraforming Mars does.
Nice.
It just kind of, and then you're kind of sprawling out your city, trying to get lots of different sort of technologies and advancements and get more points. But it's if you like a good heavy Euro, if you like Terraforming Mars, seriously suggest giving Underwater Cities a go.
Yeah, this is very high on my list of want to play. I just love the aesthetic. It looks really great. Yeah, I'm excited. My number 33, Hanabi.
Hanabi.
Here we go. Was this on your list?
This has not been on my list, no, and I don't think it will be. Although I have played this, my friends will. I have some friends who every time our list comes out, they continually tell me how bad your list is. But at this point, they will be like, "Oh, Dan.
Why do they think my list is bad?"
I forget. There's a couple. They like Taverns and Tiefenthal's.
Well, then I certainly don't value their opinion. Okay. Well, this is for you, my friends. Hadami. So Hadami, again, it's one of those games where it's like I don't think to play it a lot. Like I don't it's not something that I would choose to play. Mm-hmm. But as I was ranking my games, I was just like, no, this is excellent. I have a very good memory of getting a perfect score, 25, with friends of mine playing this game. We might have cheated a little bit, but the amount that everyone cheats playing this game. But basically, you have a hand of cards, and you face your cards outwards, so you don't see the cards. Other players see the cards. And then you are trying to play 4 or 5 different stacks of numbers from 1 to 5 in keeping colored suit. And so on your turn, you can either play a card or you can give a clue. But when you give clues, you can only say a number or you can say a color. And so you can point out a card and you can say, this is a 5. Or this is a yellow. That kind of thing. And so then you're left to okay, well, I guess this means I should play this card, or this means that I can sort of be safe to discard this, or whatever. And as you play as a group, you'll start to develop your own little codes and code words. A really delightful game. Just kind of laughs are waiting in the cards. And it just and again, I like to piss people off when I play this game. Our friends might not enjoy actually playing this game with me because I do I'll just be I don't know anything. And I'll just play a card. And people are and then it works, and it's okay, good.
That's rare. I hate people that do that.
But yeah, so delightful, fun, cooperative, crazy.
Yes, I've played it many times, and we've only gotten a perfect score once, so it is an elusive goal. But I often joke with Dan. He hates it when I do this, but every time we're playing a game and he hands me a deck of cards, I always go, "Can I look at them?" And he always gets so mad because the answer is always yes, except in Hadami.
That's right. And he's like, "But what if we were playing Hadami?" I'm like, "We're not playing Hadami."
My number 32. This was a game that, as it was coming up on my list, I was like, I don't know if I could say a lot about this, so I just played it 2 days ago. To make sure that I can say something about this, and I think it's where it should be.
Does it hold up? Okay,
that's a good game. Great Western Trail.
Wow.
So this is, I think it's just a game where you're going around in this kind of this loop, but every player can kind of be at different stages of the loop, and so if you go really really fast around the loop, you can lap other players. If somebody's just going 1 space at a time, you can move usually up to 3, and then later on you can even move 4 spaces at a time. And so it creates this kind of interesting tension where every spot is usually mostly good. I can go to this spot and I could get $2, which I kind of need, and maybe I could hire another staff person, and I kind of need that. But then I could go a couple spaces further, and I could instead get some extra cattle, or I could go a couple stages further, and I could move up my train along this board. And it's really just this kind of idea of, because the game it's not like some Euro games where it's you get 17 turns and that's it. The game length is variable depending upon how quickly players move around the board. And so you can choose to just sort of go one at a time and just sort of collect little goods here and there as you go along. But then you can have this other guy who's just okay, fine, I'm just going to run along the board. And I'm just going to take every little, spot ahead of time. And then after he's gone around the board 3 or 4 times, because once you make it to Kansas City, which is sort of the end of the loop, that's when you sell a lot of your cows, you get a lot of money, you get some points. It's kind of a big scoring moment. If your opponent gets more times around the board than you, that's a pretty big advantage, as opposed to you just kind of getting all these little bonuses. So it's a choice between oh man, this is a good spot, but is it worth it instead of me, moving up further kind of along the trail? So it's I think this is the highest of the Alexander Pfister games on my list. It really sings for me.
Yeah. So I played this once a long time ago, and I didn't quite get that rhythm, right? Like I didn't really grok what was going on in the game, so I didn't have a really great first play experience. I kind of got owned.
That being said, I have lost every game I've ever played in this. Sure. I'm not good at this game, but I still enjoy its aesthetic.
But I'm looking forward to playing this again someday. There's so many games I'm looking forward to playing. Right. I don't think it's ever gonna happen. My 32, Dixon.
Nice.
There it is. So your lower list?
That's right. Just
my upper list.
You don't need to watch any further. Just
we're just doing it again. That's right. So again, I specifically put Dixon Journey on here because that's the version I have of the game. But again, Dixon is a game that I've used to get all sorts of people involved in the hobby over the years. And it's a game that I kind of consistently go back to if I just need a breath of fresh air. If I need something to just kind of lighten the mood in the room. Maybe we got a little testy with one another in a previous play. Let's just breathe easy here. So you got to hand the cards. You're going to play a card face down. You're going to give a one-word kind of clue, like not even a one word. You can do whatever, just a sound,
you can sing a song,
lyric, you can sing a song, you can do whatever. And then everyone else has to find a card in their hand that they think matches that clue. Everyone guesses which card they think is your card, and then they get points accordingly if they were right, or if you were able to kind of have your goal as a clue giver is to have some people, but not everybody, guess your clue card. That's how you get points. Nice little game that way, but the show stealer here are the cards. The cards themselves have beautiful art on them, really wonky art, and that's really what steals the whole game for me. It's just if you want to sit around looking at really nice, evocative art, Dixit is your game. And I love how you can play different kinds of games of this type with Dixit cards. So I play a game called Similo that I really enjoy using Dixit cards. It's a very versatile game. I would buy just decks of Dixit cards just to have beautiful art in my home.
Well, my final game, number 31. This is a game by Red Raven Games, and this is Above and Below. So I really, really like Above and Below. As I said before, I like narrative games. I like games that tell me a bit of a story as I'm playing them.
More like Tales of Arabian Nights 2. Gosh. Frick.
Much better than Tales of Arabian Nights, although that's a fine game in its own
right. No, it's not.
But as you play this game, and this is a game that has a little bit of story in it. Generally it's kind of a Euro game where you're putting your characters and you're like exhausting them to either build buildings or to farm resources from those buildings or whatever. But then every once in a while you're going to dive deep into the depths. You're going to go above and below. And so when you go below, you open up this book and you read an encounter, and sometimes you meet these Golgog creatures, and sometimes you just meet somebody who needs some money and you give her money and it turns out she's an evil sorceress and she turns you into a frog or something. There's all these kind of like...
More than likely.
There's all these sort of different little weird experiences, but they're just kind of like nice little details that just sort of add to the beauty of the story. It's not a huge part of the story, but every once in a while you just kind of get into this little adventure.
So for me, Above and Below was not a hit. So the storytelling element, you're saying, gives a nice little flavor to it. I found it much more distracting than that. I found it to be more of like, because there was a whole phase dedicated to it. And so there's a whole phase dedicated in the game to going on your little adventure and picking your story beats. But there's no way for you to know if the kind of little narrative blip that you're going to experience, how it's actually going to aid you in your Euro game that you're playing. Like, there's no way of knowing, like, am I doing this kind of adventure? Am I going to be getting this kind of resource or that kind of resource? It's fairly random in what you're going to get. And so I was really frustrated that I couldn't kind of at least have some kind of initial choice of like, do this thing for resources, do this thing to find another character, do this. Like,
you never know, man. Sometimes you help the old lady and she gives you a mushroom.
You
and
never
other times,
know. That's it. You never know.
But you never know.
You never know. That's the problem.
That's just real life, man. It's just you got to make a choice and see where it takes you.
I don't play board games to feel more real life. Although I guess I could fool somebody into thinking that. Because that's all board games are. Real world simulations.
Anyway, so yes, if you enjoy a narrative board game, this is not the strongest. Like if you really prefer something like Sleeping Gods will have a much stronger narrative element. Near and Far has another strong narrative element. I think I like the gameplay more Above and Below than in Near and Far. But if you enjoy kind of a little bit of storytelling in your game, then I do really enjoy Above and Below.
Okay, my last game on this list. We made it. This game is indicative of what you're going to see for the remainder of this list probably. It's also just sort of, this is my type of game. This is a medium weight Euro through and through. This is Aegesia. So this was a grail game for me for the longest time. So it's also on my list for that reason. I finally got it. Bought an old copy after Shifting Sands came out, and then Shifting Sands went on print, and I found this and bought it. Kind of regret it. Oh dear. Okay, well let's not go back. So Aegesia, what are we calling it? Ratcheting game. So you have a river and you can travel down this river, but you can't go back. And so you choose how far you want to go, and then it's the next player's turn, and they choose how far they want to go, and away you go. And along this river, there's cards that you can collect. And basically what you're trying to do is there's these different sort of monuments and things along the river that you can stop and you can contribute building points to. And so you have your little colored bricks, and basically those areas are kind of area majority things where you're going to get points for how many bricks you've contributed to those building spaces. But then the other game that you're playing is on your player board. You have workers, and you can upgrade your workers and make them more valuable. But then there's also this cool kind of game that you're playing with kind of the terrain and the harvest and how fertile the land is. And so you're wanting to create kind of floods, and you're wanting water to come so that the land is fertile. And so you can kind of change the fertility of the ground as you're playing the game. And then certain workers are going to be able to produce certain things in different fertile seasons. And so all of your workers will produce at the most fertile time, and only some of your workers will produce when it's sort of fertile, and then one of your workers will produce at all the times, this kind of thing. And so you're really kind of managing this balance between making sure the fertility is right in the area, making sure you're contributing to these building structures, making sure that you are upgrading your workers so that they're more successful for you, and of course, you gotta feed your workers at the end of the round. So you got that to balance. But what I really enjoy about this game is that there's just enough for you to juggle, and it's a game that really demands you to juggle it all. You're trying to do all those things all at once. Whereas we mentioned games earlier where heavier Euro games, they kind of start to say, okay, focus on a couple things, sacrifice other things, don't worry about them. This is a game where it says, here, juggle all these pieces, strike the balance, have fun. So that is my 31st favorite board game of all time, Aegesia. That is our list. We're going to keep going. We're keep doing this list. Next week, we're going to have our 30 to 21.
Intense.
We are getting there. Holy Toledo. We're going to keep coming at you with videos every Sunday. We come out with a video. We're coming to the end of this series of our top 100 board games of all time, and you better believe that we'll have another series in the queue waiting for you to keep on going from there. To Father Greg's utter pleasure and desire. He is so excited to be my conversation partner through all of these videos. So party people, let us know what you're thinking down below in the comments. Like the video, it really helps. Subscribe to the channel, that helps too. Share the video. Say, these guys are amazing when you share the video. I think that'd be a good caption for you there.
We're no longer weird anymore.
We're not weird anymore. Someone down below, they said, you guys definitely don't suck. No, they were very. It's
the highest praise I've ever gotten.
they were very kind about it. So I think we should insult ourselves more so that people feel the need to affirm us in the comments down below. All right, party people. Until next time, have the best day.